Yo, what is up, everybody? Jumping here, and I am back on some Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and today I want to talk about the new Safi Gunlance. Mainly, I'm going to be talking about the long one, but I will say that the normal one is also really good, and wide is actually pretty good as well. So it's really up to you on which one you might want to play with, but the long one, the reason why I want to talk about this is because the builds you can make with long Gunlance in Iceborne is nuts. They are nuts, and the Safi Gunlance gives you so much freedom to do really whatever you want. So, I mean, here's the deal with this build. What I really love about it the most is that even if you don't have a lot of stuff, let's say you don't have a ton of decos, you can make the long Gunlance work for you. It's good against pretty much every monster in the game, and you can actually make counter builds to everything, just because you have so much freedom with your build if you're going to play long Gunlance. And that is nuts. So, let's go on and talk about this. I'm going to be showing a couple different versions of this build. But like I said, you have a lot of freedom. So, if you don't have certain things that I have, you can always find a way to work around it. I've done that because I don't have, like, amazing decorations. I have some pretty decent ones at this point, but I'm still missing a lot of really great ones. But the point is that you can always figure out a way to kind of work around it with the long Gunlance just because you have insane freedom with this build. It's absolutely nuts. So, let's go ahead and talk about this. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this is like my normal version of the build, my general version of the build, because this is the one I use the most. Because it kind of has like every good Gunlance skill you can possibly get. I mean, it's missing one skill, which I'm going to talk about here in a moment, but everything else, I mean, it's kind of perfect. And so what this build has, it has Earplugs 5, Artillery 5, Divine Blessing 5. It has 3 health boosts, 3 focus, 3 part breaker, 3 invade extender, 3 guard. I wish it was 5 guard, but 3 guard is fine. It does have 3 recovery up once I have my mantle on. It has capacity boost, it has flinch free, and it has guard up. So this is a super tanky build, and it's really nice because it has quality of life to it. The evade extender is more a quality of life thing with the Gunlance. Same with part breaker. Part breaker is nice because it can help you flinch the monster, and it also lets you break parts. That's really good in the guiding lance. It's really good against Safi'jiiva. But when you are breaking parts, you are flinching the monster, and that will help you out a lot, and it will help your teammates out a lot. And it's just something that you will notice, that you're constantly flinching the monster with this build. Now let's talk about the Awaken abilities, because this is, of course, really important. Now the first thing I want to say about the Gunlance, the Safi Gunlance, is that it does not matter which one you actually get. Because if you're just shelling, and that's what we're doing here, we're just shelling, you will not apply any type of ailment, and you will not apply element at all. So because of that, it doesn't matter which one you use. It can have lightning element, water element, it could be blast, it could be sleep. It doesn't matter. You're never going to actually apply the element, and you're never going to apply the status. So, to be honest with you, the best thing to actually get is that if you can get a Gunlance as you're farming Safi, if you can get one with the Zora Magnaris Essence already on it, that will save you so many materials. It took me forever to get that on this weapon. I actually started to just use it against Safi just to build up potential, and then once I did that, I got it pretty quickly after doing that for a while. But that's really the only pain to get. Everything else is pretty easy. Now, the first Awaken ability that really matters, of course, is the Shelling Long 2. You have to get that if you want to turn this into a Shelling level 6 Long. And then after that, we have 2 Sharpness increases. That's not like the most important thing, but it does help, because the only time that you're really going to notice a big damage drop off is when you get to yellow. So the longer we can use this without getting to yellow, the better. And most of the time, the monster is going to run away before you ever get to yellow. And that will give you a chance to go ahead and sharpen, and if you do that, you're pretty much good to go. After that, we also have a slot upgrade level 4. Now that's going to give us 2 level 4 slots on the weapon itself, which is really nice. But that is our rainbow ability, so that's going to be like your highest upgrade of all the upgrades. And finally, we do have the Zora Magnaris Essence, and that's what makes, honestly, the Safi Gunlance long one so good. is because we have 2 level 4 slots on this, and we actually can use only 2 pieces of Zora instead of having to use 3 pieces to get Artillery 5. And that just frees us up to put like so much stuff on this build. Like I said, you can make counter builds with this. So if you want Tremor Resistance, you can get that. If you want like stun resistance against like Teostra or something, because if he stuns you, you're probably going to die. I mean, that's just the reality of it, especially if he's tempered. So if you want to get like something to counter him or to counter any monster in the game, it's really easy with this build. Yes, you will have to sacrifice something, but Part Breaker and Evade Extender, those would be the go-to sacrifice skills. And you can just put on whatever you want at that point. And that's like just amazing. Now for this build, what I'm using is I have the Earplugs Charm level 4. I have the Zora Helmet Beta. I have the Gold Raffian Chest Beta. I have the Stygian Zinogre Gauntlets Beta. I have the Gold Raffian Coil Beta. And I have the Zora Boots Beta. I am using the Rocksteady Mantle and the Temporal Mantle. Those are really nice to help you wallbang. And also, like, this build with health augment on it is so good. You are going to heal like crazy. And you can literally throw Rocksteady on, and if you're shooting the monster, you can just kind of tank through a lot of stuff. You don't want to be stupid where like you're just getting hit like really hard and then you don't move or don't block. But there are a lot of times where you can kind of just sit there and just let the monster hit you while you shoot it, and you're going to recover your health faster than the monster is going to be able to actually kill you. And with Divine Blessing 5, if that's kicking in, you can really pull that off, and Rocksteady is really, really good with this. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the decorations. Now, when it comes to the skills that you're trying to get, the most important ones here are Artillery 5, Focus 3, and Capacity Boost. Those are your main damage skills. Everything else is just a bonus. So, depending on the decos you have, or depending on how you can work around it, you might have to sacrifice some stuff, but you should be able to get a really solid build together just by figuring out ways to combine different pieces of armor to help make up for what you might not have. So you can definitely do a budget build to this, and it would definitely work out really nice. Now, the real problem, the one skill here that I don't know if you could work around would be Guard Up, because I know that the Shield Jewel back in the day in Monster Hunter World was really rare. I'm not sure on how rare it is now, but I remember this being very rare and people complaining that they didn't have it. And if you don't have this jewel, you might just have to live without it, unfortunately. Capacity Boost, which is the magazine jewel, that can be gotten on armor. I know like Domagama, you can get Capacity Boost, and I'm pretty sure the armor's not horrible, so you can actually get some decent slots on top of it. And when it comes to artillery, the Zora set actually can come with artillery. The helmet gets like 2 if you use alpha. The chest piece gets 2 if you use alpha. And then there's a belt that will give you 1 if you use the alpha version. So maybe you have some artillery 4 jewels, because they seem to be like pretty common. I've gotten a ton of these, and I've just started playing Monster Hunter Iceborne. I've only been playing for like 3 weeks now. So I've gotten like 9 of these or something like that. It's pretty crazy. They seem to be common, at least to me. So if let's say you have these, but you don't have the level 1 version of this, well then maybe you can just use the belt. And there you go. And if you do that, you might have to sacrifice some Divine Blessing, but Divine Blessing level 3 is fine if that's what you can get. And when it comes to focus, I know that Charger in Monster Hunter World, the base game, that was pretty rare. I'm not sure on how rare Charger is in Iceborne. But let's say you don't really have Charger jewels. Well, then you can actually just go ahead and make some armor pieces. I know the Damascus chest piece, that can come with some really good slots, and it has 2 focus. There's also the Stygian Zinogre boots, and those can come with 2 focus, and it's decent slots. So there's a lot of workarounds here. And yeah, you can sacrifice Evade Extender, you can sacrifice the Part Breaker if you need to, and you should be good. And I also have an Iron Wall level 1 and an Iron Wall level 4 in here. And with that, let's say you have no Iron Walls. You could maybe sacrifice earplugs. You can always block roars. That's just the reality of it. So maybe you don't really need earplugs all that much. And if that's the case, you can just go ahead and make a Guard Charm. And that can give you Guard level 5 just from the charm. So that's really great. In my mantles, I have the Medicine Jewels in there. mainly just so I can get that recovery up. This build can definitely tank. It's kind of crazy. You put that Rocksteady on, and with health augment on this weapon, and speaking of which, I actually didn't bring this up before. I have 2 health regen on my weapon, and I have a defense boost for the augmentations. So that was build number 1. Now I'm going to show you build number 2 and build number 3. Now, let me just go ahead and show you this other build. Now, this is my Slinger capacity build, and that's the other really good Gunlance skill. Now, Slinger capacity 5 is going to add literally like 6 extra minutes to your bomb, which is nuts. Like, once you stick your monster with the bomb, that's it. It's going to be in there for the entire hunt. It's probably not going to go away. And that is awesome, just because sometimes you might get really unlucky and you just cannot get your bomb into the monster. Or you might get your bomb into the monster, but it's in a really bad spot and you're like, okay, I need to reapply it. And then you might struggle trying to get it back in there. So, that's like the only annoying thing about Gunlance. With Slinger capacity 5, you really don't have to worry about that nearly as much, because once it's in there, you don't have to worry about reapplying it. If you're fighting against like a tempered elder, normally, yeah, you're going to have to probably apply it at least twice in a hunt, especially in like co-op. You're probably going to have to apply it twice. With this, you only have to apply it once for the most part, and you're going to be good to go. So that's the best thing about it. And there are some monsters that move around like crazy, and it's just really, really hard to actually stick them with your bomb. Now, one thing I do like to do with Gunlance is I like to actually craft shock traps in the middle of the hunt. So I actually have an item loadout, and what I'll do is either I'll wallbang and then apply my bomb, or I'll shock trap and apply my bomb. That way I can just get it in there right away. Now, you can't trap elders, so you have to pretty much exclusively rely on the wallbang to be guaranteed to get your bomb in there. But that's, like I said, that's where Slinger capacity really comes in handy, because you're going to just get that extra duration, and it's really, really nice. Now, for this version of the build, we are not using Divine Blessing 5. We only have Divine Blessing 3. So that's kind of a bummer. But we also now have Tremor Resistance 2. And that's actually pretty good against certain monsters. So I do like that a lot. Now, when it comes to the armor, the helmet is the same. The chest piece is the Zora Beta chest piece. And that's going to give us the Tremor Resistance. So that's really nice. And we're also using the Silver Rathalos gauntlets and the Silver Rathalos pants. Both of these are beta. And these are going to give us the Slinger capacity level 5. And that's awesome. I mean, it's just nice. The decos are all the same. I'm not going to go over them. You can just look at them yourself if you're interested. The only difference is the earplug / vitality deco I have in here. And I also have a charger / medicine deco in here. That way I'll have that recovery up 3 when I have my mantle on, and I'll have the 3 health boosts, and then I'll have the 5 earplugs. So that is this version of the build. There is one more version of this build that I want to talk about, which is the hybrid version of the build. This is going to combine the best of 2 worlds. This build has Divine Blessing 5, and it also has Slinger capacity level 3. Now, I don't really know the duration of Slinger capacity level 3. I do know that with Slinger capacity level 5, you get that 6 minutes, which is epic. So I want to say that with Slinger capacity level 3, it's probably more like 3 extra minutes. But that still is really nice. So I definitely do like it for that. Now, one other thing about this build is that this build has guard level 5, which is just really helpful. Having guard 5 is just nice. And it is not using part breaker. As you can tell, I really like evade extender because I like to move around faster with the Gunlance when I'm hunting. So evade extender is really going to help your movement with the Gunlance. So if I'm going to sacrifice a skill, normally I'll sacrifice part breaker before I'll sacrifice evade extender. Now, when it comes to the armor of this build, it's pretty much all the same. The only difference is we are using Silver Rathalos gauntlets, and everything is the same as the first build outside of that. Same with the decos. The decos are pretty much all the same. The only difference is we are using an extra Iron Wall level 4 deco, and that's going to give us the guard level 5. Alrighty guys, well that's going to do it for my Safi long Gunlance builds. Now I'm going to show you some gameplay, and I'm going to probably respond to an SOS. It's going to be a tempered threat level 3, and I will show you on how this long Gunlance works. Alrighty, well I'm going to be hunting the Monkey Boy, which is a super dangerous monster, especially when he's tempered. Oh my god. Kind of got lucky right as I got up here. The guy did the wall bang, so I can actually get my bomb into him right away, which is nice. Normally, what I always do is I try to load it up so I have my thing ready to go. Plus, I'll try to pick up some ammo somewhere because I'll do the wall bang if no one else is doing the wall bang because I'm trying to actually get my bomb in there. And on top of it, if all else fails, I'll just use a shock trap. Pitfalls are really not too good about it because if you're dealing with a bigger monster, like this guy, he's not that big, so maybe the pitfall would work. But when you're dealing with something bigger, what will end up happening is that you'll pitfall, and then if you try to actually stick them with the bomb, you're going to hit them in the back, which trying to shoot their back is just annoying. If you can get it into the legs, that's what you want. The legs are like the sweet spot. You can easily chase down a leg. Now, one thing you're going to notice too, I just took a ton of damage with this Rocksteady, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to heal like crazy, man. That's one of the best things about this. You can really tank with this Rocksteady. Now, this is a really poor monster to really demonstrate this against. It's pretty decent, it's consistent. And I'll tell you this much, it's easier to shoot this guy with the Gunlance than it is to like run up and smack him with the Greatsword. I'll tell you that much because in co-op especially, this dude runs around and moves around like freaking crazy, and it can be a real nightmare. And that is an option that I did not bring up. You could potentially, if you have the resources or the spots, go for Quick Sheath with this setup. And if you go for Quick Sheath, then essentially what that will do, that will allow you to just put away your weapon quicker. Now, the purpose of using the Evade Extender, mainly for me, is of course positioning when I'm trying to get to the spot so I can shoot the particular spot where the bomb is. Having the Evade Extender is really nice for that, but also I like to try to catch up to the monster, so the monster's moving around, and I'll use Invade Extender to try to catch up to where the monster's at. So that's really nice. But if you do have Quick Sheath, you can always just put your weapon away, and then you can just run to where the monster's at. And I always generally unsheath my weapon by just blocking. That's one thing I do as well. And if you are going to use Wyvern Blast, by the way, with this setup, and you're in co-op, try to be a little bit careful with it. I'm always super careful about it. I always try to aim it into spots where I don't feel like I'm going to hit any of my teammates, because I actually get, sad when I knock over teammates. I'm like, oh man, I'm sure they're salty, because I've been knocked over so many times by that, and I can get pretty salty. I'm like, oh, freaking idiot, like, what are you doing? Now, I actually kind of have a funny story when it comes to long Gunlance, because back when I was playing Monster Hunter World a lot, I played a little bit with Gunlance. I used Swing Axe for a little bit, and I did try wide Gunlance, and I did use normal Gunlance at one point, but I never liked normal Gunlance back then. And I know normal Gunlance is really strong now, so that's a really good option. It's just that with that type of build, you're actually swinging your weapon, so you actually want attack on that build. Where with this, you don't need any attack. You just go for the artillery, and you're done at that point. So it's just simpler, and I like simplicity. I'll be honest, like, it makes it so much better to me. And I like comfy builds, so like the long Gunlance is perfect. If you like comfy builds and not dying, the long Gunlance is definitely the build for you. And I would probably say the most comfy build I showed is that hybrid build. Like, you don't have Part Breaker with that build, but you have that Slinger capacity for that extra duration, and you have Guard 5, because like against this guy, having Guard 5 is pretty nice. I'm not using that build here, I'm using the first build I showed, but if I did have that build with Guard 5, it would be a lot easier to block him, just because he would not be doing nearly as much damage as he is when he's hitting me, and pushing me back too. That's the other annoying bit about not having Guard 5. Now, I never considered using a long Gunlance back in Monster Hunter World before Iceborne came out, because I knew about it, and I knew people like kind of talked about it, and it seemed like, okay, that's an interesting idea that you can actually shoot your Gunlance and charge up your shells and just shoot it from the distance. But I remember the damage of it was like pretty bad. It was pretty freaking bad. And because of that alone, I basically just never messed with it. So when I actually came back to Monster Hunter World and started playing Iceborne, I heard and seen that long Gunlance got a big buff, and it's a lot better now. It's like really, really good. And I did see a lot of people using it too. I was like, okay, so it's fairly popular. And I wanted to try it out. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and make the Valhazak one. That was my original one I made. And I was like, I'm going to try this out now. And let me tell you, trying to figure out the long gun lance, maybe it was just me, maybe I'm just an idiot, I don't know, but I could not figure out how to charge my shells. Like, it was actually quite annoying, because I was thinking, like, okay, to charge the shells, you probably have to hold the shelling button. You have to hold circle on PlayStation. And that's what I was trying to do, and it wasn't working. I'm like, dude, how does this work? And then I think at one point it did charge it. I'm like, how did I do that? Like, I had no idea. So I looked it up on Google, and I remember, like, I seen people asking about it, like, hey, I'm trying to do long gun lance, and I don't know how to charge my shells. How do I charge my shells? Somebody help me. And so many people would respond and say, you guard and you hit triangle circle. And it's like, no, motherfucker, that's not what we're talking about. And I seen that, like, response so many times. But eventually I actually got my answer. And I'm bringing this up just because if you are interested in making a super comfy build like this long gun lance build, then you do need to know this, because trust me, this was actually quite annoying for me. But the way you charge your shells, and it's like so crazy because I actually watched a bunch of videos on this too, and like no one ever talks about this, I swear to God. The way you actually charge your shells is anytime you do an attack, that's when, after you do that attack, that's when you hold circle. And then you can, at that point, just continuously hold circle, like, you know, every single time, and you're going to do a bunch of charge shots. So, like, a lot of times you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm shooting a normal shot first, then I'm charging the shots up, and then I reload, and I'm charging shots up. It's just pretty much like how I play it. But you can also do like your triangle attacks as well. So you can do like a poke, and then you do the charge shots over and over again, reload, you know, there you go. Now remember, you do want to actually sharpen. Like, that's kind of important. Like, when you get like down in blue and stuff, sharpen the one time during the hunt and you'll not have to worry about getting into yellow. But sometimes, you know, you might get into yellow even with all that extra sharpness, just because it is what it is, really. Like, you're shooting a whole bunch, you know. So that's just how that is. So it's a good idea. So I throw down a trap right here just to try to get some damage. And I was thinking about maybe actually re-sticking them, but there was no need. And at this point, I mean, we're destroying him. And he is trying to go to bed, and he's going to get capped. So that's going to be the end of the fight, but we're going to obviously let him go, because if he goes to bed, it's a lot easier to capture him that way, especially when he's in his like super hyper mode like that, because you can't shock trap him in that mode. So when he goes to bed, he'll actually be out of that mode. Alrighty guys, well, that's going to pretty much do it for this video. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. But, you know, this long gun lance build, I'm telling you, try it out, man. It's really good, consistent damage, and it's so comfy. It's so safe. It's so great. I would really appreciate it if you could like this video for me. Be sure to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, click the bell. If you don't click the bell, you can't stay notified, so you won't know when I post videos. And if you don't click the bell, you're pretty much not subscribed. That's kind of how it works. But that's going to do it for me. I really do hope that everyone has a very nice day, and peace out.